On this week's Melbourne Property TV panel, we're talking owners' corporations, formerly known as body corps. Joining me, Norman Mermelstein from Property Investment Services, Robert Larocca from the Real Estate Institute of Victoria, and property law specialist Simon Libbis. Gentlemen, I didn't even know they'd changed from body corp to owners' corporation. When did this all happen?
It was all about looking at the old laws and realising that Victoria and how Victorians had lived had changed a lot since they'd been created, and really we needed a new set of laws to cater with the new living arrangements and particularly the size of the body corporates. Some of them become enormous.
A lot of people now living in or enjoying apartment living. Owners' corporations are very relevant. What's your advice to people when they buy a unit, even if I guess it's an investment, as far as the owners' corporation?
Well, I think the most important thing is to do your homework well, because owners' corporations are meant to be there to provide a service and assist the owners. They're not a separate thing. They're actually, the owners' corporation is made up of the members, the lot owners on the lot, so it should be doing everything in their interests. Like all democracies, I suppose we could call it, they do have their difficulties and their people that try and sometimes get things their own way or try and take some sort of control. And sometimes you do get difficulties in the way owners' corporations are operated, in fact. And so it's very important, anyone buying into a property affected by an owners' corporation, to do their homework and understand what sort of an owners' corporation they're actually buying into.
My experience of owners' corporations, every one of them's got a nut bag.
I go out on a limb and think of them as slightly as very small councils, really, because there's a lot in common. It's about getting a group of people together to share ownership of common property. You know, in the case of councils, we're talking billions of dollars of roads and those sorts of assets. But in owners' corporations, you're talking about the footpaths, the areas in between, the park spaces, the shared facilities. You know, people got to look after them. They own them jointly. They've got to look after them jointly.
And there's certainly significant benefits in. That's why people go into these sort of developments. Don't have to mow the lawns, clean the pool, worry about the lift, things like that. So that's the benefit. Someone else does that on your behalf. But if that's not being done in a way that suits you, or not being managed properly or maintained properly, or there's a majority interest in the owners' corporation that is maybe has a different interest than some of the minorities, there can be issues there. But generally speaking, if they're managed professionally, it's best for owners' corporation members, especially in the larger ones, to have a reasonably hands-off role and let the managers get on with it. And professional managers now are very competent running rather large owners' corporations.
Now, Norman, you're involved with dispute resolution.
I am, yes.
That could get fairly tricky at times, I would imagine, because it's a very emotive thing, someone's personal property.
Absolutely. So what the legislation tries to do is that allows the owners' corporation to have an internal dispute resolution procedure whereby the owners' corporation would meet in confidence with the parties to try to resolve that dispute to avoid taking the matter further to any sort of court situation.
And I should say that owners' corporations disputes are sort of unique. And the reason they're unique, I'm not going to say because of the people involved, they're not unique, they're probably akin to, in many cases, family law disputes.
Or fence disputes.
Fence disputes, yes. And for the same reason is that when you're normally involved in a dispute or litigation with someone, that when that's over, the relationship's over, for whatever reason. But the arguments you have with the other members of the owners' corporation, they're still your neighbours and you're still going to see them every day and you've still got to work with them. So it's very important. That's why, as Norman was saying, it's very important to have a dispute mechanism that enables it to be resolved without necessarily going straight to the adversarial role. Because it's best to get people to try and resolve their issues. But I've had some cases where I've just said to them, to a lot owner, your only solution is to sell your lot. You can never live there in these circumstances.
What's the most bizarre or petty dispute you've ever had to arbitrate? What's the one you tell at dinner parties? Providing it's clean.
Well, there's not clean, because often it's to do with what dogs do on other people's lawns. Those sort of things. Cooking smells from particular, certain styles of cooking upset other neighbours. Noises from too much bedroom activity, perhaps coming through to the other side.
Music and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that music and stuff. That's right. Yes,
yeah.
Things like that. So it does, and I suppose the concern.
How do you resolve that one?
Oh well, tell them to move.
I'm sensing a TV show there, some sort of reality show for yourself.
Well, they're very difficult to resolve because really, and this is why it is unusual, because they're effectively neighbourhood disputes. So it wouldn't matter whether there's an owners corporation involved or not. These, you've got terrace houses that have got the same issues or places that are very close together. But as soon as you put an owners corporation around it, the owners seem to think, well, the owners corporation's got to solve this problem for us. And in many cases, it's not really an owners corporation problem at all. So often with these disputes, it's a matter of actually sort of wading through it, saying what really is the issue, and is it really one the owners corporation should be involved with.
And Robert, when you buy a property and you get a Section 32, are there things you should be looking for, like $20,000 allocation from each apartment for a new roof or these sorts of things? Is that part of your due diligence?
The law provides if you're buying into an owners corporation, you get a certificate as part of that purchase, which goes with the Section 32, and it will tell you those details. So, it's part of the due diligence is to understand the financial implications of living in that owners corporation. But, like Simon talks about, you've also got to understand the neighbours, just like any residential street.
Yes, but that's the owners corporation certificate's interesting. It's the only, in a Section 32, apart from the certificate of title, it's the only certificate that actually has to be put in the vendor statement. So you've got to get an owners corporation certificate, and that's critical because once you buy into a lot affected by an owners corporation, you buy into all its liabilities. So if it owes millions of dollars or has a pending sort of a liability of several $1 million, you buy into that share of that liability. And the other side of the coin with that is there are some owners corporations that don't function as such. They don't meet. They just don't bother meeting. And it doesn't mean they don't have liabilities. And you can't get an owners corporation certificate from those sort of owners corporations. So that's a real dilemma.
That would be a real dilemma, especially in the area of common area insurance. You cannot in fact sell a property if in fact you do not have insurance covered by the owners corporation. So there are means to overcome those problems, but where it usually means the seller actually pays the insurance for the common property.
So that is meaning someone falls down the stairs or common property and hurts themselves, it's who pays for that?
Well, what one would definitely want to do under those circumstances is make sure the common property is insured and then take the battle separately. You cannot afford the risk of not having common property insured
that's a
for
very
public
important
liability areas.
That's a very important point because, especially in some of the smaller developments, each lot owner insures their own lot. The body corporate doesn't function, therefore there is no, even though you're required to have it, and even though you can't sell your property without it. But the reality is there are lots of them that haven't got it. So the sort of scenario you talked about, someone falls over down the stairs, they get run over in the driveway, there's no insurance to cover it because the lot owner's public liability doesn't cover it. And so what then happens is that the person could sue the owners corporation. The owners corporation has no insurance. It doesn't have limited liability like a company. It means each one of those owners is liable to pay that share of the damages, and their own insurers won't cover it. So insurance is a really big issue with owners corporations.
Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. We'll have links with more information on our website, melbournepropertytv.com.au. We're also going to do another in-depth story later in the series about owners corporations. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.